So, Tony, what have you got lined up for us this week as you take us into a journey of our Black history?
Yeah, so last week we discussed this whole thing about Henry VIII, who he was, and his very strong connections to Hackney. And so, as Mr. C said, if you missed that, then you can actually just go back into YouTube, medianet.tv, and have a look at that. But today we're going to still stay with Britain, because this country has a very interesting history. So I wonder if we can just put up the first slide. And here's an interesting picture. On the left-hand side, you might have seen this a few years ago. This man is known as Cheddar Man. And due to DNA research, historians and scientists came up with this model as to what the original Britons would have looked like, right? So in other words, the indigenous people of this country would have looked like that, according to scientists who did tests. Now, when this particular image was made, obviously there was an uproar, as you can imagine. And people were saying, well, he's not black. He's not black because he's got blue eyes. Black people don't have blue eyes. But as you can see, I've put a side-by-side comparison with a girl who has blue eyes. Blue eyes is actually not uncommon amongst black people. You may even know someone who actually has blue eyes. So that was quite interesting. But the issue we have right now is that the only historical information we have, or what's been made available about Britain, really comes, the earliest time is really from the Roman conquest.
Right.
So let's have a look at the next slide. Right. So it's really the Roman records that tell us a lot about British history. And the Romans basically made an excursion, a trip. They brought legions to the UK back in 47 AD. And normally when you make excursions as part of, you'd bring the army along, you'd bring engineers, you'd bring cartographers. These are men who drew maps of the area, and you'd bring your historians and anthropologists who would study the people.
Right.
And so one of the historians that they brought along was a man who's well known. He's actually called the father of history. His name was Herodotus.
Herodotus, yeah?
Yes. And Herodotus noted that the people that he met, and he described them as short black men with curly hair.
And this is when? AD 47?
47 AD. So it's 47
years after the death of Christ.
Yeah. After so probably about a decade or so, a couple of decades after Christ. They came to Britain, and they met these men who were short black men with curly hair.
Wow.
And their historians surmised that they probably came across to Britain from the area now known as Spain and Portugal, which is called the Iberian Peninsula.
Right.
Now, there's a reason why we're going in this direction. If we pull up the next slide, what you're looking at there is a family crest, an ancient family crest. Now, in ancient times, it was very common for families, rich families, of course, to have family crests, and this family crest is of the Lindsay family. But notice the image that you're seeing of the Lindsay family crest. Right? This is a important British family. So why is a black man with a crown on his head?
Is it actually a man or is it a woman? Because it looks like they're wearing it. It looks like they're wearing an earring here.
Yeah. And that was actually quite common.
Okay. All right.
Right. So it's a black man wearing a crown. Right. So that's an English family crest. Right. Let's move on to the next one. Now we're going to see a Scottish one.
Oh my gosh.
Now this is the Christie family crest. Right. Now we know we have some Christies in our black community, the most famous one being a former Olympic athlete, Linford Christie, right? But this is the Christie family crest of Scotland.
And again, we see another black person with a crown.
Person as a family crest. Okay, all right, let's move on. Here's another family crest out of Scotland from the Andrews family, right? Notice pretty much at the top of the crest. What do you see there?
Another black figure.
So,
Victrix Fortuna Sapientia.
what's going on here? Why are we seeing pictures of black men on crests? And Herodotus says that when he came here, black people are who he met. So let's try if we can see if we can put the pieces together.
Please do, man. Please, because
scientists tell us that the original inhabitants of these islands were black. The Romans said that when they came here, they met black men. Now, due to Roman invasion, obviously they warred with these tribes, these black tribes, and pushed them further and further north. Eventually, these men or these people became what we now know as Picts and Celts. So they pushed them as far north, and these people ended up inhabiting Scotland and Ireland.
Sorry, can you say that phrase again? Was it Picts and Celts or?
Yes, it's Picts.
Pict. Okay, Picts and Celts.
Picts and Celts. Right. So and we do have, there are books written around 16 and 1700s that describe the Picts and the Celts, the Picts of Scotland, the Celts of Ireland, as black. Now this is where it really gets really spooky. During the days of Oliver Cromwell, right, who was the Lord High Protectorate of England, both Scotland and Ireland were invaded, right? There was a great massacre. A lot of these black Scots and the black Irish were murdered, right? The ones that survived were put on ships and sent to where?
You're going to say the Caribbean.
Caribbean.
Wow.
Listen. Okay. Now, if you're Jamaican, this will be a special interest to you, right? These people were sent to places like Jamaica, Barbados, St. Kitts and Nevis, Montserrat, right? Where they worked alongside the slaves who were taken out of Africa. So let me repeat. Oliver Cromwell invades Scotland, Ireland, kills a lot of people. The ones that survive, packs them on ships, sends them to the Caribbean. They work as indentured laborers, right? Indentured laborers. They were not slaves. They were not chattel slaves. They were indentured laborers. They worked alongside the blacks that were taken from Africa who were enslaved, right? And to all intents and purposes, the indentured laborers were treated very, very badly. The only difference being they had certain rights. So one of the rights that indentured laborers had is that you couldn't change their name, right?
Right, okay.
And oftentimes they worked for a 4 to 7 year stint, after which they were given some land, right? And a little lump sum to make their way in life, right? But with slaves, they were permanently slaves, their children were slaves, and they were property. So with slaves, you could if his name was this, you could change it to that. You couldn't do that with indentured laborers, indentured servants rather, right? So let me go back to the story. Oliver Cromwell goes in, invades Scotland, Ireland. He promises his men, for the hard work that you do, I'm going to give you all these lands that we're going to take over. Right? So they kill the people, the ones that survived, pack them on ships, and then they took over the lands. These people now are transported to the Caribbean, where they work the fields along with the Africans. Right? Now, let's stop here for a minute and play this video so we can get a bit more understanding.
You just have to bear with us, ladies and gentlemen. We seem to have lost the sound on the video. Tony, can you give us a little narration of what's happening here?
So basically, this is an Irish reporter from Ireland who went to Montserrat, right, and was surprised to see. So this
Montserratans speaking Irish, basically.
Right. So this is a reporter from Ireland who went to Montserrat, right, and was surprised to find that they had Irish-speaking peoples there, and so he wanted to know how they got there. And this gentleman here is explaining that in the days of Oliver Cromwell, they packed them on ships and sent them to Montserrat, right, as indentured servants. So you will find in Montserrat, for example, they have a lot of people would have a lot of Irish surnames. For example, Allen is a common surname in Montserrat. Irish would be a common name in Montserrat. These individuals here, rather than being the descendants of African slaves, a lot of them are actual descendants of original Irish people that were sent there as indentured servants. Hence, that's why they have such a close connection with Ireland. And in fact, Montserrat is even known as the Emerald Isle, as Ireland is known as the Emerald Isle. So we can stop the video here because this man is about to sing we can't hear him, but he's singing an ancient Irish song. And how would he know that, of course, unless it was passed down to him through his traditions? So let me go back again for those. So I think someone asked me a question.
What year?
Angela Coles said, "What year was this, please?" This is going to be around sort of late 1500s, going into the 1600s. And so basically, what happens is Oliver Cromwell goes into Scotland and Ireland, kills his men, take over the land. They put these people on ships and they send them to the Caribbean, right? So the Irish were sent to a number of islands, not just Montserrat. Montserrat is just a classic example of how they've basically kept their Irish culture. But another place, right, that the Irish are quite predominant is in Jamaica.
Very much so.
Right? You find a lot of Irish names in Jamaica. A lot of the places in Jamaica are named after Irish places, right? And even the accent and the way Irish people speak, the twang, you will hear that in Jamaica and vice versa. And it's interesting. It's interesting that English people refer to the Irish as the blacks of Europe, right?
They sure do. They sure do.
And there's a reason for that, right? So there are very strong connections between Ireland and Jamaica. Not only that, though, there are interesting connections between Scotland and Jamaica. If you're Jamaican, your name is likely to be Campbell, MacLeod, McLeish, right? Christie. And rather than the reasons why people often say that black people have these names is because the slave master gave it to them, right? But the real truth is that those names are actually those people's real names. They're real Scottish clan names that they left Scotland with. So when we have been told this story about how we were taken from Africa and da-da-da-da-da, well, that's only partly true.
Part of the story, man.
So some of us here now today are actually not from Africa. We are not descendants of enslaved peoples. We are descendants of indentured servants that were taken out of Scotland, that was taken out of Ireland, brought to the New World to work. Even a lot of the Americans who believe that their ancestry has to do with African slaves are not. They also have Scottish descent, English descent, Irish descent. So here's the weird thing. Here's the weird thing. We've been kept in such darkness that a lot of us don't realize that we are home already.
Yeah. Yes, Tony. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was beautiful, bro. Now you know what, the Irish connection in the Caribbean, I knew of it already because the same clip that you've shown, I've seen it many years ago, and it started to make sense. And again, when you even look at some of the names of the parishes in the Caribbean, you know, the St. Patrick's, the St. Catherine's, again, they're all kind of Irish sounding names. Now, one of the things what I noticed as well, which probably leads into what you're saying, is that I remember the first time I went to Edinburgh for the comedy festival, and uh, I'm not saying that you know, I've got a liking to women in general. However, my preference has always been women of color, black women. And I've been like that from since a very young age. So, you know, black women are above and beyond my preference when it comes to women. But I found that when I was in Edinburgh, I was looking at Caucasian women, and I was like, oh my God, there's something about this woman that is just absolutely, I've got an attraction, and I was battling with it, and I was saying, what the heck is going on? And I noticed it was women who had dark jet black hair. And I sat down with a local, and I was talking about it, and they said to me, "Oh, the ladies with the jet black hair are from the Celt part of Scotland, and what it is that the Moors came over and populated this, and that's why the Irish and the Scottish, those of the Celtic thing are dark and have that because the Moors, the bloodline comes from the Moors." And
And if
that kind of explained it to me. I was like, okay, I get this now.
right, if you, I mean, if you can recall in your memory when you look back at, you know, when you were younger, you might have passed in a pub. Your dad was in a pub or whatever,
Hmm.
and the amount of black man you used to see with Irish woman, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Right? There's because it's historical.
Hmm.
You see, even though the white Irish people are a recent addition to the islands, although they claim, right, although they claim that they've always been there, but the reality is that the world, the planet as we know it, every
Hmm.
country has dealt in migration, right?
Yes.
Migration is millennia old. People move all the time.
Yeah.
People are defeated in their own lands. People are starved out of their own lands, and other people move in and claim the history and claim the background. And it's no different here.
Yeah. I mean,
So
when you, sorry, go on, Tony.
no, so basically, the people who are here who say that they're indigenous, they say that because they've got nothing else to say, right? And then they keep us trapped in this mythology of where if you're black, you must be from Africa. Do you see?
Yeah.
If you're black, you only come from one place. But white people come from all over the place. We come from Europe. We come from everywhere else, right?
Mm. But the
But
truth is,
but that's a myth
yes.
because scientists have already confirmed that the first indigenous people, right, were black, right? That's Cheddar Man that they created to say, look, it was a dark complexion. It wasn't a white person. The influx of white people into the UK was much later on. By the
You
time
know,
they came, the whole England, Scotland, Ireland were well inhabited with black people, right? Eventually, what happened is that they were driven out, right? And part of that driving out was Oliver Cromwell, who basically packed them on ships. You see,
so,
so just there's another slide we haven't put up there, just in case people are interested in looking at this history a little bit more.
mhm.
There's a book you might be able to get online. It's called "Whence the Black Irish of Jamaica." So just keep it up there, please, so people can write it down if they want to sort of look into that book. And it really goes into the whole history of Black Irish, how they got into Jamaica, Oliver Cromwell, all that stuff, all that good stuff. So if you're really interested, if you're Jamaican, this would probably be a very good book for you to look at as part of your.
Fantastic, man.
One more slide I've got there as well, which is quite interesting. It's from. Can we have that last slide? Wonder if he's got it there. He's having problem putting it up. But it's from a Scottish newspaper. Has he got that there?
It seems like we're having a little bit of technical problems at the moment. Oh, there we go. There we go. From the Herald it says Jamaica.
There he goes. There he goes. Look, so this is the Scottish paper, the Herald, and it says Jamaica, the country with more Campbells per head of population than Scotland. So why has Jamaica got more Campbells on its island than Scotland has? Because the Campbells are Scottish. That's why. Because the clans of Campbell are in Jamaica. Because these are the original Scots.
Look at
so
this.
If you have a Scottish surname, right? If you have a Scottish surname, you might want to do some research into that. Marshall Allen says, so aren't we Moors? No. It's a short answer.
Okay, we might have to.
Moors are involved in the history, but as far as the British Isles are concerned and who we are, I mean, Moor is a really general name, actually.
Okay.
To be fair, I mean, it was often used in reference to people of color. But
right.
Specifically Moors. If you're talking about Moors that came off out of North Africa, went into Spain, and basically ruled Spain, went up to the borders of France, then no, we are not them. But
because as you rightly said, there's so many different types of black people throughout the world. Yeah.
Right. Black people are not a homogenous group, right? Even when we say the word black, it's wrong because we're not black. There's no such thing as black. There's no such thing as white. The expression black is a construct that was made up in the 1700s to delineate different types of peoples. Of course, black people being at the bottom and whites being at the top and everybody else in between. Yeah. There is actually, people were never known by the color of their skin. They were always known by their nationality, what nation they came from, right? Sometimes they were known by their religion. So when you read about English history, for example, you'll hear the Catholics and the Protestants. Well, some of those Catholics and some of those Protestants were actually black.
Yes.
Right?
Of course.
So people were often identified in that way as opposed to black. Black is a very new concept. We use it nowadays, but what happens, it gets very confusing because then we say all black people, but actually all black people are not the same.
Yeah.
We're divided into different clans, right? We're from different clans, different ethnicities, different backgrounds. We just share the same melanin, but we're not the same.
It's interesting what you've just revealed, Tony, because then, when you look at the world globally and you look at the fact that, again, we've made this point before, that, the people of Australia, the people who live there now, who classify themselves as Australians, again, you're not the originals. When we look at America, the whole continent of America, the people who live there now are not the originals. And so again, even when you're looking at Africa and you look at all across the world. So even when you've just highlighted England, Cheddar Man, again, the people who live here, the majority are not the originals. It makes you understand a little bit more about history, black history, and who we are. And you know what, Tony, the next time somebody says to me, why don't you back to where you come from? I'm going to tell them I'm home.
You're home. Some of us are definitely home. Some of us are definitely home. We're actually standing on our own ground. This is the indigenous ground on which it's ironic, isn't it, that you were taken away and now not even realize you've come back. It reminds me very much of Planet of the Apes. If you remember, Planet of the Apes was about astronauts who went out into space, came back to the same place 500 years later.
Charlton Heston.
Right, but it was ruled by some other people, right? Some other beings, the apes, right? And that's what's happened here. You were taken away, right? Your conquerors did not teach you. And to be fair, they're your conquerors. They don't have to teach you anything. Their whole point is just to keep you subjected to them.
Well, that actual film it was a TV series originally, the Planet of the Apes TV series. Right. No, sorry, it was a film first and foremost. But the film was really based on racism.
It was because he was inspired to write that after he saw What's Rights in LA, and he wrote that.
Yeah.
And if you watched the subsequent films, you've got you've got it where they've got apes on auction blocks being sold off. So it's really a reference to our history, but it's a history because we are sold slavery, and it's done a number on us. It really
It sure
has.
has. It sure has.
It's done damage to our national self-esteem. And then we're sitting there saying, well, when are they going to teach us the truth? They're never going to teach you the truth, right? All the paintings, last week we saw how King Henry VIII, we saw the original painting of King Henry VIII as a black man. You will never see that on television. They will never share that with you because they don't want to share that with you.
Yeah.
Because they need to keep you in a place in your mind where you are always lesser than. I mean, I think you pointed out last week, it's the white Jesus complex, isn't it? Paint Jesus white and everybody bows down.
It sure is. It sure is. And again, I mean, it's the old thing. It's like if you go somewhere and you teeth something, you don't want people to know it says teeth it, you teeth it. You want everybody to believe that it's yours. So, and again, it's this whole kind of thing. It's like, Britain wants to hold on to the Falkland Islands where they're clean over in Argentina. I mean, there's a lot of people who honestly just accept the fact that the Guernsey Island and Jersey Island are British. But have you ever looked on a map to see where they are, where they're located? Common sense alone tells you that. How can this belong to you? So it is, as you're rightly saying, Tony, it is this mindset of history is about, how can I put it? History is all about illusion.
Yeah,
it's all about illusion.
It's a mind game.
Yeah.
Because your root, right? Your root is very important. If you don't know your root, then as Marcus Garvey sort of implied, the tree will die, right? So you're sent on a merry-go-round of slavery, and that's part of the reason why they keep pushing out the slave movies. You see, because they need to keep you on that slave roundabout.
Not only that, the whole thing with slavery is that I mean, for me, I kind of worked it out at a very young age. Is that what happens with slavery? If you push slavery enough, it acts as a blockage and a barrier for you to look even any further, because you get hit with this pain of slavery first and foremost. So what happens as you go towards it, you now tend to want to go back away from it and never look at history again, Black history again, because you think the more I look into this, the more pain I'm going to endure. But just beyond slavery is the beauty of our Black history, and so this is what we have to do, and this is what you're doing wonderfully here, Tony, man. Can we give Tony a tremendous round of applause for? Oh man, I'm loving this, Tony, man. I'm absolutely loving this. This is what you teach the children in school, and oh my gosh, man, I can't wait for next week, man.
Yeah, Black history is a wonderful thing, bro. When like Marsha pointed out, it's not just slavery and the evils, it's really tied into your origins, and we go further back. I mean, we go back 2,000-3,000 years. We've got history to talk about. So and that's gonna keep us entertained for a while, and hopefully some people will decide to go and do some research and look into some of these things, because obviously I don't want to, don't listen to me just because I say it doesn't mean it's true. Yeah,
please do.
Trust, but verify.
So listen, we want to thank each and every single one of you who've been watching tonight, What a Week TV show, especially all of you who've made a contribution with your comments and your questions. Thank you very much, from Denise Francis to Millie Bentham, Angela Koza, so many people, Sharon Spice, God, so many of you to mention. We thank all of you. Just a reminder again that at 9 o'clock on ITV, Alison Hammond will be talking about history, again from a Black perspective. So please tune in and let's give her some support. But most importantly, we catch you next week for What a Week. It's been good night from me. And Tony, final words from yourself, sir?
Oh, don't forget, please share the link. If you like what you just heard, share it with people who need to know, your young people, older people. Let's get people to understand what this is all about, what we're all about. And see you again next week.
What a week. Wakanda, everybody. Good night. Take care. God bless. We catch you next week.